Imagine being so hungry that people begin eating cats, dogs, and even leaves just to survive. Imagine watching your country's markets become empty, while the richest merchants hide grain in secret warehouses. And imagine being the ruler of one of the world's greatest empires, yet being powerless to stop your own people from starving. This is the story of one of the darkest famines in medieval history. A disaster that almost erased the Fatimid Caliphate forever. By the late 11th century, the Fatimid Caliphate ruled Egypt and controlled some of the most important cities in the Islamic world. Their influence stretched across North Africa and, at times, reached as far as the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. But beneath this image of power, the empire was slowly falling apart. Years of poor Nile floods meant that crops failed again and again. Egypt depended almost entirely on the Nile for farming. When the river didn't rise enough, fields turned dry, harvests failed, and food became scarce. Soon, grain prices exploded. What had once been affordable became a luxury. Ordinary families sold everything they owned just to buy bread. Then came famine. Not for weeks, not even for months, but for years. As hunger spread across Egypt, law and order began to collapse. Roads became unsafe. Armed groups attacked villages and caravans. Trade almost stopped. With no food arriving in the markets, prices climbed even higher. For many people, survival became impossible. Even Caliph Al-Mustansir Billah, the ruler of the empire, could not escape the crisis. According to medieval historian Al-Makrizi, the famine became so severe that the caliph's own mother and daughters were forced to leave the royal palace and move to Baghdad because life in Egypt had become unbearable. Imagine what that says about the situation. If even the ruler's own family could no longer live safely in the capital, what hope was left for ordinary people? Al-Mustansir knew he had to act. But the question was, who was responsible? Many believed that greedy merchants were making the disaster even worse. Instead of selling grain, they were secretly storing it. The less grain available in the markets, the higher the prices became. Whether all of these accusations were true or not, people desperately wanted someone to blame. The caliph summoned the governor of Cairo and gave him a terrifying order. The governor was told that if he failed to restore bread supplies in Cairo, he himself would be executed. The governor now had only one option. He decided to use fear. In one of the most dramatic political performances of the medieval world, prisoners who had already been sentenced to death were dressed as wealthy merchants. The governor then gathered Cairo's grain traders, mill owners, and bakers into one large meeting. In front of everyone, the prisoners were executed. The governor publicly declared that these were the merchants responsible for hoarding grain and creating artificial shortages that had pushed the country toward disaster. Whether the audience believed the story or not hardly mattered. The message was clear. Anyone caught manipulating food supplies could face the same fate. The effect was immediate. The merchants became terrified. They promised to release their hidden grain. Mill owners agreed to restart their mills. Bakers pledged to increase bread production. They even agreed on fair prices for bread to make it affordable once again. For a brief moment, it looked as if the government had regained control. But appearances can be deceiving. The real problem was much deeper. Egypt simply did not have enough food. Fear could force merchants to open their warehouses, but it could not create grain that did not exist. The famine continued, and with every passing month, the Fatimid state grew weaker. As hunger spread, the empire began losing territory. One region after another slipped away from Fatimid control. Baghdad was firmly back under the Abbasid Caliphate. In Mecca and Medina, the Friday sermon was no longer delivered in the name of the Fatimid Caliph, a powerful sign that his political and religious authority was fading. Then came another devastating blow. In 1071, the Norman rulers captured Sicily. For generations, Sicily had been an important Fatimid possession in the Mediterranean. Now it was gone. The empire was shrinking from every direction. Internally, famine. Externally, military defeats. The Fatimid Caliphate stood on the edge of collapse. By 1073, the situation had become impossible to manage. Al-Mustansir realized that he could no longer save the empire alone. So he made a decision that would change Fatimid history forever. He invited an Armenian general named Badr al-Jamali, who was serving in Acre, to come to Egypt. The Caliph granted him complete control of the military. To strengthen their alliance even further, Al-Mustansir married his youngest son to Badr al-Jamali's daughter. It was more than a family connection. It was a transfer of trust, perhaps even a transfer of power. When Badr al-Jamali arrived in Egypt, he acted with incredible speed. According to historians, he crushed rival factions, executed powerful opponents, and restored order through strict military discipline. The civil war came to an end. Security slowly returned. Trade routes reopened. The worst period of chaos finally ended. For many Egyptians, Badr al-Jamali was the man who rescued the country from complete destruction. But every rescue comes with a price. Although the Caliph remained on the throne, real power was no longer in his hands. It had shifted to Badr al-Jamali. Large numbers of Armenian soldiers entered the Fatimid army. The office of the vizier became stronger than ever before. From this point onward, the Fatimid caliphs increasingly depended on powerful military ministers to govern the empire. According to the Encyclopaedia Britannica, this marked a turning point. The caliph remained the symbolic ruler, but the state's survival now depended on strong viziers rather than strong caliphs. Outside Egypt, the empire continued to lose influence. Large parts of North Africa slipped away. In Syria, political chaos made it almost impossible to resist the advancing Seljuk Turks. The Fatimid Empire survived, but it never fully recovered its former strength. Sometimes history teaches us that empires do not fall because of one great battle. Sometimes, they are defeated by empty fields, by failed harvests, by broken economies, by hunger. The Great Famine of the Fatimid Caliphate reminds us that food is more than survival. It is power, it is stability, and when food disappears, even the mightiest empire can begin to crumble. If you enjoyed this story and want to discover more forgotten chapters of history, make sure to subscribe and join us for the next journey into the past, because history is full of incredible stories.